Hello, and welcome to Insurance Answers 101, where we address common insurance questions with easy to understand answers. Today, I'm going to cover a question that I get probably more than any other question when it comes to insurance. And that is, how is my rate or price or premium, whatever you want to call it, how is that determined? I get asked all the time. I'll hear something like, um, I'm a certain amount of years old and I haven't had a accident or a ticket in the last, 10, 11, 12 years. Nothing's changed. Why is my rate changing at my renewal? Or I'll hear something like, my coworker or friend, their insurance rate is only this amount, and a lot of our information and driving history is the same. So why is their rate different than mine, or mine more expensive than theirs, or something like that? In fact, if I had $1 for every time I heard something like one of these questions, I probably wouldn't even need to be in the insurance business. So today I'm going to break it down and try and give you a clear understanding of how these rates are determined and why the prices are what they are. So before we even get started too much, let me kind of give you an analogy for comparison. When you start with an insurance company and join into one with a new policy, you're basically joining a team. So that team consists of all the other customers and kind of the condition of the company at that time. So that team is constantly changing and evolving and morphing into different things depending on, you've got new people coming onto the team all the time. You've got other people leaving the team at all the time. So it never quite stays the same, and it's always changing. Now, when you have an insurance policy, these policies are written for a specific term, whether it's 6 months or whether it's 1 year. It's not like some things where you're just kind of grandfathered in forever. Every time you have a renewal, that policy is updated to essentially a new policy for each renewal. And, your policy is going to be reviewed at each renewal to determine how that team is at that time. So there are a few factors that are going to go into the way your rate is determined, whether it is a brand new policy or whether it is a renewal. So let's break it down. You're going to be looked at in two categories when your rate is determined. There's going to be personal rating, and there's going to be group rating. Personal rating is going to apply towards the things that I think most people tend to think about when they think of their insurance price. This covers your driving history, such as any tickets, any claims you've had, your age, certain things that are more exclusive to you individually, okay? This is called individual rating or personal rating. And it is a big part of what will determine your price. The next category is group rating. And this covers things that are not quite as much pertaining to you, but pertaining more to like the general region, maybe where you live or reside. Some things that are factored into this, and they'll break it down by sometimes a zip code or even an entire state. But for instance, if you live in a area where there's much more traffic, maybe a busier city, there's lots more cars on the road at all times, there's just a higher volume of traffic, then your auto rating is going to be affected by that. As opposed to if you live in an area where there's not a lot of traffic, your rate will be affected in that regards as well. Also, if you live in an area where there's a higher amount of crime, such as break-ins or vandalism or theft, that also is going to affect your rate. And this can apply towards homeowners insurance or auto insurance or whatever type of insurance you have. there's going to be things like this that are going to affect it. Some insurers will even look at if a particular area has a lot of lawsuits and litigation that is filed in that area, basically an area where people tend to be kind of sue happy, and there's a lot of liability lawsuits, that may affect your rate. So basically, when these insurers look at the group rating, the rates aren't so much determined by you specifically. They are going to be determined by the risk factor that is involved overall. So that's what they're looking at on that. And those are some things that may differ from person to person. There's also one more element that kind of will be determined in this, and that is the company overall. So, and part of this will apply to the group rating as well. But let's say, for example, the insurance company that you're dealing with, maybe the state that they're in had an exceptionally bad or rough winter. There was a lot of snow and ice, which led to a lot of maybe traffic accidents during that winter. And that particular company had a lot of claims during that period of time. And company A, maybe who you were signed up with, may have had a lot more claims than company B did that winter. And it just so happened to work out that way. Well, these companies, every so often, they do a review of the situation of that company. It's like an audit for that company. So if there was a period from the last review to the current review they're doing now, there happened to be a lot of claims, then that's going to affect the overall team, basically, when their rates are renewed. Now, you might move into the springtime when maybe company B had a lot of claims. Maybe the springtime had a lot of storms and there was a lot of hail and wind, and company B wound up having a lot of hail damage or roof damage, siding, who knows. And company A didn't have as much. Then people that are with company B are going to see that rate reflected the next time that company does a review. So there are many factors. They're not just the personal factors. There's the group factors. There's the company factors. Basically just looking at the overall condition of the team. And that's why rates never quite stay the same forever. And then also, another big factor is inflation. Inflation does change. You're not going to be stuck with the same insurance rate for your auto or homeowners is what you had, say, 5-10 years ago, simply because the cost to repair a car or rebuild a home isn't going to be the same as it was 10 years ago. The price is eventually going to change no matter what. So just because nothing maybe has changed too much on your personal situation, if you haven't had an accident from the time you took out insurance until today, there are other factors at play, and this is why your rate tends to sometimes change or fluctuate up or down. So really, the main thing to keep in mind, even though you may dread every month you have to cut that check out and send it in for your insurance payment, at the end of the day, a lot of times you can't go wrong having that safety net of having insurance. If you look at it this way, let's say your yearly premium for your insurance policy is maybe $1,000 a year. We'll use an auto policy as an example. If your auto policy is $1,000 a year and you have one accident, say, especially if it's an accident that involves maybe a newer car. If it's an accident that you're liable for and maybe you hit a newer model car and even one passenger in that car was sent to the hospital, then if the payout on that claim is even, say, $50,000, which is relatively low if you're talking about a newer car, and if one, or even more so if two passengers were sent to the hospital, if you're paying $1,000 a year on your policy and you have one claim at $15,000, then unless you've been paying on that policy for at least 15 years, then the insurance is still paying out more then you have paid into it. Especially if maybe you've only had that policy for 5, 6, 7 years, then at the end of the day, the insurer is still paying out more on that accident than you've paid in. So it really is in your best interest to maintain a good insurance policy, and you'll be covered and you have that safety net and you'll have nothing to worry about. Anyway, I hope this helps clarify how these rates are determined a little more. And if you found this video to be helpful, please like and subscribe. There's other videos on this channel that will address other insurance questions, so you can use this channel as a reference guide for all your insurance needs. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.